Hello everyone and welcome back to another video, and today we're going to be looking at Cadaver from the mind of Kedric Winks, and this edition of the game has been published by Cheatwell games. Now you may notice there's two copies here because this is the first edition of the game, which was published way back in 2016 by Triple Ace Games, and so I thought it'd be interesting to compare the two editions. So as well as looking at the game, for anyone who already owns the first edition of Cadaver, they can decide whether they think it's worth getting. I think it is, because this version of the game has a lot more cards and it supports more players. So the original was only 2 to 3 players. This is 2 to 6 players. The game is for ages 14 and up, and it takes around, I'd say, 20 minutes to play with 3 players. I've not played it with any more than that, so that might make for a slightly longer game. But anyway. We'll look inside the box, we'll check out the components and quickly run through the rules, and then we will compare both editions of the game. Quickly looking at the components, we have a rule pamphlet. It's not a very complicated game to learn, so the rulebook isn't massive. And we just have an absolute ton of cards here with all the various things on, so I'll sort all these out into piles in a moment so we can have a look at them. And we have a rather nice grave dug inside the box there, which is quite cool, and a graveyard around the inside. So give me a moment to just set all this up, and then I'll run through the rules for you. Okay, these are all the various cards in the game all laid out in front of us here. Now, when the game starts, each player will be dealt a hand of 5 cards, and there will also be a randomised draw deck which is generated from all of these cards and these as well. But I haven't done that here. I've got all the cards nicely laid out for you, so you can see what they all are. So on a player's turn, there are 3 phases that they do. They can lay cards, and they can lay up to 2 cards. And then they can draw up to 5 cards. And then if they want to trade any cards with any other players, there is also a trading phase where they can do that as well. So during the laying phase, as I say, every player can lay up to 2 cards. So what are the cards that they can lay in front of them? Well, the core cards of the game are obviously the corpses. These are the cards that you are attempting to resurrect by playing the correct resources on top of them. So you lay a corpse in front of you, and then you can also lay a resource on top of it, the correct matching resource, if you've got one in your hand. The other cards that you've got that you can lay are over here. So we have accomplices. Now, these are handy accomplices that allow you, when you do the draw phase at the end of your turn, instead of just drawing a random card from the deck, you can choose to take one from one of the 3 resource piles, provided you have the correct accomplice in front of you. So the picture shows you what type of resource they will allow you to pick up. There is this special accomplice called Igor who will let you take whichever resource you want. So that's really handy, but there's only one of him in the game, and there are 2 of the others. The other cards we've got are ghouls. Now, ghouls allow you to steal a card from another player. So you can play this, and for example, if you want to steal an accomplice from another player or a corpse, you can do that. And if you steal a corpse, you also take all of the resources that are on it as well. So if another player is very close to completing a corpse, you can play a ghoul, steal it and all the resources, and then if you've still got another card to lay on your turn, you can immediately complete that corpse. So it's very, very handy. However, players can stop that. The player on the receiving end of the ghoul can play an amulet to stop the ghoul from taking effect. The amulets also have another handy feature, is this: they act as a wild card. So if you're very close to completing a corpse but you just can't get that last resource you need, you can use the amulet as a wild card if you've got one in your hand. However, there are only 3 of these in the game, so you have to be very careful when you use them. Other cards that are available are the coffins. You can put these on top of a card to stop the cards underneath it from being used. So if you had, for example, let's say this guy here needs 3 of these to be completed, and you put a coffin on it, then that means that A, it can't be stolen by a ghoul, but B, you can't do anything else to this card until you play a key to remove the coffin. So if another one of your competitors is close to completing a corpse, you can place a coffin on it to stop them from being able to complete it unless they've got a key where they can remove it. So you can use the coffins either on your own cards to prevent them from being stolen, or on your opponent's cards to prevent them from being used. So that's quite an interesting tactical decision that you have to make. And as I say, the keys allow you to remove the coffins. Once the draw pile has run out, it is dawn, and so the end of the game is triggered. And at the end of the game, every player will have a number of corpses that they have resurrected throughout the game. So the scoring is, if you have 3 identical corpses, then each set of those is worth 10 points. Each set of 3 different ones is worth 5 points. And then if you have any individual ones that don't make a set or don't fit in anywhere else, then you get 1 point for each one, because you can't use a corpse in more than one set. So, you know, no cheating and trying to combine your sets together to make more points than you have. The exception is the Abomination corpse. This is the corpse that requires 1 of every type of resource. If you resurrect this one, and there's only 1 of these in the deck, I believe, then this one is worth 5 points. Add all the points together, and the person who's got the most points at the end of the game is the winner. Okay, so let's now talk about the differences between the 2 editions of the game. The most obvious difference is the size of the box and the number of cards. There are double the number of cards in this edition, which, as I said before, increases the maximum number of players from 3 to 6. So to accommodate for this, there are a couple of small changes in the gameplay. So the first new gameplay addition is that on the resource cards, there are now these ones that grant you double resources. So those are mixed in with the piles at the start of the game, which didn't exist in the first edition. And also a new accomplice, whose Igor is the one who lets you take 1 of everything. The original game only has the accomplices that let you take a single resource. There are also some slight artwork changes to some of the cards. So as you can see, these are the new amulets, and these are the old ones. And the Abomination corpse has been given a facelift as well, old versus new. The new one looks a lot hunkier and a bit more Frankenstein-y, a bit you know, a bit more muscly. So oh yeah, I prefer that guy. He looks a bit more mean. And finally, the rules have had a few small wording tweaks and changes, just to, I guess, iron out any misunderstandings that people may have had, clarify things a little more. But generally the flow of the game is identical, so it's more cards for more players, some new artwork, and the double resources and Igor. Those are the main differences between the first and second editions. So after all that, what do we think of Cadaver? Well, I like this game. It's a nice light game to either start or end off a game's night, either to get everyone warmed up or to wind everything down at the end. It's also a nice size to be able to take places with you. Maybe play it on a train or in a hotel room or something like that if you're going away. Obviously, if you're already on the first edition, the main advantage of this new version is the extra player count. So if you found yourself playing the original version of Cadaver and thinking, oh, I could play this with 4, 5 or 6 players, then obviously this is a no-brainer. You should get that. If you don't own Cadaver already, then yeah, I'd really recommend it. It's a game that I've enjoyed over the last 7 or 8 years since I've owned it. It's good fun, easy to teach, easy to learn, and yeah, really enjoyable. So we'd strongly recommend that you grab a copy of this if everything you've seen in this video piques your interest. I'll put links to everything in the video description. But for now, thanks for joining us looking at Cadaver, and we'll see you in our next video.